stranger.
Greetings, travellers, and welcome to Innsmouth in the new year. Yes, 2025 dawns, and who knows what the coming months may bring. We were just saying that given reality at the moment, Innsmouth almost seems like a haven of sanity, doesn't it? I'm one of your guys, Rob Poynton.
And I'm the other one, Tim Mendes. Yes, it does indeed. Yeah, the world has gone insane, and not in the fun, fluffy, cosmic horror way. I think everybody's got a case of existential dread right now.
Even Lovecraft couldn't have made it up, I don't think.
No, it's like living in a Thomas Ligotti novel, isn't it? It's all a bit grim.
So we hope you had a really nice festive season and a happy new year to everyone. I think, the first thing we're going to start off with then is, what did you get for Christmas, sir?
Oh, well, multiple things. Basically, my entire Christmas sort of haul consisted of books and video games, because we recently got a PS5. And as I've mentioned before, I'm writing a book on cosmic horror video games. And I kind of stalled because a lot of the ones that had come out, I couldn't play because I didn't have the current gen console. So, I've had a whole bunch of video games to catch up here. And, some absolute corkers. Got the Silent Hill 2 remake, which is utterly, utterly brilliant. Surpassed expectations. I was a tad dubious because remakes rarely land, although recently, like the Resident Evil remakes have been really good as well. But this is one of my favourite games of all time.
Yeah.
And so I was a bit trepidatious, but Bloober Team did a really, really class job on it.
Nice.
Yeah. Got Alan Wake 2, which, again, has a cosmic horror element to it. The Dark Presence and all that kind of business. And when Linda, apparently when she went to get this, she went to get the Silent Hill 2 remake at the same time, but they didn't have a copy in stock. So she was like, oh crap, I'll have to quickly order it and get it sent to Eastbourne where we were going.
Right.
And so the guy in the shop gave her an Alan Wake cardboard standee as an apology. Oh, so nice. Yeah, it's awesome. I was well chuffed with that. I like collectibles, you know.
Yeah, it's cool.
Of course, this had to be done. Still Wakes the Deep.
Yes, of course.
From the Chinese Room, first-person Lovecraftian exploration horror. I'm immensely excited about that. I got this one here called New Martyr, which I'd never heard of. It's an indie survival horror first-person game, which apparently is Lovecraftian as well. And it's only just come out.
Brand new game. So.
Yeah, brand new release. I don't know if it's any good, but it has to be played.
Oh yeah,
it's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it.
All in the name of research.
Indeed. And for me, apart from Silent Hill 2, the other star of the show for me was this little gem here, which is the Alone in the Dark remake.
Marvelous. I actually played the original game again a little while back. I downloaded it from somewhere and, of course, updated for Windows 10 or whatever it was. Yeah, and it was every bit as good as I remembered, even with the old graphics.
Oh, yeah, because it's got such a great setup, hasn't it? And the atmosphere, that Louisiana swamp kind of setup. And this sticks kind of to it, but it's more of a remix. Obviously, it's massively updated. It's third person over the shoulder camera and all that, but now you also you use this sort of talisman device to travel to other areas, which is really, really cool mechanic. And at one point, all I'm going to say here is that you end up in a library in Egypt being stalked around the bookshelves by a certain Lovecraftian entity.
And marvelous.
Brilliant, really good fun.
Oh, that sounds great. Is it Edward Carnby again, the main character?
It is. And Edward Carnby in this is played by David Harbour, who, of course, is the sheriff in Stranger Things.
Stranger Things, yeah.
Yeah, and the other character, Emily Hartwood, because you can still play as the two characters, and you get slightly different playthroughs, and you don't know the full story unless you play with both of them.
Nice, that's good.
That's played by Jodie Comer.
Oh. Right.
From Killing Eve.
Killing Eve, yeah. Wow.
Yeah. That's well worth picking up. Yeah.
See, I'm on that stage now. I think that's on Xbox. I've got an Xbox One, I think it is.
Yeah.
I think that's on the new Xbox. So I'm not sure if I can play it on the Xbox One.
No, you can't. And that was the problem that I had. That's why that project's been on hold for a few months while we upgraded.
Yeah.
Because I've got an Xbox One and a PS4.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, bollocks. I can't play anything really new because it's all PS5 and Xbox X.
Yeah, so I'm going to be in the market for a new Xbox then, it looks like, this year.
Yeah.
Because I do want to play that. That is one of my favourite games ever.
It is well worth picking up. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I rattled through both playthroughs in like 2 or 3 days. I just mainlined it because I was so into it. It's always a good sign when you do that. I did the same with the Silent Hill 2 remake. I mean, it's about a 20-hour playthrough on the Silent Hill 2 remake, and I did it in like 2 days or something. I was just like, Linda's like, "Do you want to go out?" No, busy.
Nice.
You know how he gets sometimes, right?
Yeah. 4 cups of coffee and yeah.
Oh, that's exactly it.
Whatever else you might need to stay awake.
Yeah. Snorting coffee beans. Yes. Now moving on to books. I got a couple of classics here. I got the Penguin Classics edition of the Lafcadio Hearn Japanese Ghost Stories.
Ah, interesting.
Which, I've not read it yet, and but it's one of those things that I've been meaning to read for decades. So it's kind of been on my back burner, and now I've got a copy. I've got no excuse to read it now. And another thing that I got was this lovely hardback edition of the Ghost Stories of Wilkie Collins.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it's a really nice edition. There's actually a few in here that I haven't read.
Yeah.
So, because he did some really good ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, like The Last Stage Coachman and The Dead Hand and things like that.
Is it me, George? I think there's a bit of a resurgence in what you might call the classic sort of Victorian Edwardian ghost tale. I'm not sure of Wilkie Collins' exact time. I'm guessing early 1900s.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely had a resurgence. When I went into Waterstones, because this brings me into the next bits here. What Linda's family decided to do this year, instead of going out and buying loads of presents, was that we just exchanged books.
Right.
So we had to buy like 4 books each, and so you end up coming away with 4 books, kind of thing.
Cool.
Which was a really nice way of doing it. I think it's quite a stress-free option. So obviously that gave me loads of option to just spend hours in Waterstones going through the books, and slipping Innsmouth flyers and things.
Innsmouth guerrilla marketing. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. But the horror section, that next to, like, the top shelf is usually taken up with all the British Library of the Weird books, which I'm slowly collecting.
Well, that's a growing collection, that as well.
Oh, yeah. But now there's a whole bunch of these kind of nice, shiny hardbacks like this, and they're all of classic ghost stories. And there's even a couple of weird fiction ones as well, which I would have picked up, but I've actually got everything in them because there's nothing really out of the norm in them. It's like Mountains of Madness and The Damned Thing and, kind of what you'd expect from that kind of stuff. But it's nice to see that sort of stuff in Waterstones, because for a while you were lucky if you had like a shelf of Dean Koontz and a shelf of Stephen King, and that was the horror section. Yeah,
that was pretty much it, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So two of the books I got out of that, which look interesting, was one I've never heard of by a guy called David Barnett. It's called Withered Hill. It's got like it's a folk horror kind of thing. It's isolated Lancashire village of Withered Hill.
Isn't that where you come from?
Pretty much, right? So that sounds interesting. And another one is also folk horror, I think. It's called The Chalk Man by C.J. Tudor.
Ah, I've read some Tudor. Yeah.
Right.
I think The Burning Woman or something like that was one recently. That might be the wrong. If it's the one I'm thinking of, is it adapted to a TV series that was very good?
Oh, right. Okay. Nice. Because this is talking about none of us ever agreed on the exact beginning. Was it when we started drawing the chalk figures or when they started to appear on their own? Was it a terrible accident or when they found the first body?
Nice.
Sounds like my kind of thing. So
does sound good.
Yeah.
Does sound good.
So there you go. And one last thing that I got that will be of interest to the listeners is this little beauty, which is a fob watch.
Oh, that's very nice. Oh, with tentacles on it.
A tentacle fob watch.
A tentacled fob watch. Very smart.
Yeah, it's nice. I like that. It's it's a really lovely piece of work. So,
will you be wearing that with some tweed and a nice waistcoat, a nice mustard waistcoat, perhaps?
Ooh, now there's a thing. Maybe for next Innsmouth, yeah. And one of the greatest things about it is look at the box it came in.
That's very nice as well. Keller, what's that?
Keller and Weber, apparently.
Right.
Yeah, and it's got an octopus on the box.
In gold leaf.
Indeed, indeed. Yeah. So, what was your haul then, sir?
Well, we had a pre-Christmas treat because this was fairly local to us. We had Mr. Matthew Wood of Edwardian Tales was putting on a performance in Bletchley in Milton Keynes. So just before Christmas, we went to that. CJ Hooper was there, so it was nice to see him as well. We met up and had a chat.
Oh, nice.
And it was, I've did a full review. I think I put it in Innsmouth News and it's up on the Facebook page as well. Absolutely splendid. This wasn't just a reading of ghost stories. He really performs it. He's striding about the room. The room was an old chapel. I think it dates back to about 14th century. And of course, it had the suitable lighting and everything else. It was slightly chilly, which I think is always good for a ghost story.
That's going to add to it.
Yeah. And it was an excellent performance and an excellent evening. So I know he's finished the Christmas tour now, but I think he's doing some stuff on Zoom and YouTube, and no doubt he'll be touring again next year.
Yeah.
Edwardian Tales. Yeah, really enjoyable evening.
Yeah, because obviously his performance at Innsmouth After Dark, which you missed, didn't you? Again, yeah, I was really impressed by, he was sort of acting it out, and it was the whole reaching the hand towards the mirror. That was stuck with me. It was really well done. It was, managed to, even in like a nightclub, he managed to get a real atmosphere going. He does that very well with minimal props. There was one very nice use of an old telephone, an old-fashioned telephone, and he actually used that to build a frame around these stories as well. So although they're separate stories written by different authors, he put a framing narrative around them as well that worked really nicely. Oh, that's cool.
We think the best bit, in a way, or one of the funniest bits, was there were a couple of quite young kids in there. Now, it does say on the blurb, this is really for maybe over 14s.
Yes.
And there was a young lad of about 10 or so sat at the very front. And there was one particular moment in the story, and this kid went, no, and just got up and walked out.
He noped out, did he? That's brilliant. That's amazing.
And Matt said afterwards, he goes, he loves that sort of thing because, not that you want to frighten a kid, but it's just, there you go. Then it's working.
Oh, yeah, it's kudos. Yeah. Yeah, I intended to go and see the one that he did over in Lewis. I was fully intended to go, but unfortunately I ended up in a recording session with my band on the same night. It was the only time we could get the studio. So I was gutted I couldn't make it. But it was one of those things. It's, you've got to take what you could get.
Yes. So that was the first Christmas treat. The second Christmas treat was we were down in Plymouth for a few days. So I got a chance to visit my favourite bookshop down there and have a good browse around, one of the best second-hand bookshops I've ever been in.
Nice.
It's on three or four floors.
Is that on the Barbican?
Yeah, down on the Barbican. I'll put the link up below. And literally you have to squeeze between the shelves, especially if you're the larger built chap, such as I am, and there's piles in the corners and all that sort of stuff. So that was good. We also found a couple of game shops down there. Two of them were very sort of Games Workshop, one was Games Workshop,
right,
and another one very similar. But we found this other place, And I would say about 60% of the stuff was Lovecraft.
Really?
Very interesting. Yeah, so total gaming and RPG shop and tons of stuff in there. So we treated ourselves to a big box called Bureau of Investigation Arkham Edition.
Nice.
So didn't know anything about it. Just got this completely, well, let's give this a go. It'd be good to play over Christmas. And it's an investigation game based on Sherlock Holmes, the Consulting Detective system, which we'd never played. I was saying to one of the guys down at the War Games Club, we were talking about, we used to play a game called 221B Baker Street.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember 221B Baker Street. Yeah.
So it's along similar lines. Anyway, I did a full report on this on the Dragon's Teeth YouTube channel. So I'll put a link in that up to there. Basically, there's 5 cases and you're investigating in Arkham or Boston. And we've just played the very first one, the introductory one, which, well, let's just say there's some corpses that show signs of being gnawed by, inverted commas, wild dogs.
Ghouls on film.
I know, ghouls just want to have fun. So, yeah, that's what we did on Christmas Eve. We played through the first game at that.
Oh, nice.
Very nicely produced. I do have some thoughts about it, but again, I've done a full review on the YouTube channel there.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you like that sort of investigative game, well worth picking up.
Yeah, it's funny because we had a Arkham Horror session on New Year's Eve. So, great minds thinking alike. I hate New Year's Eve out in the world. It's horrible. It's when it's amateur night, isn't it?
Yeah. We've not done New Year's Eve for years. I mean, like decades, really.
The only time I do it is if I'm booked to DJ.
Yeah.
And I have to be being paid well to DJ New Year's Eve because otherwise it's not worth the hassle.
I did one New Year's Eve gig, I think. That was probably about 10 years ago. And that was the last time I went out on New Year's Eve. And
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was decent pay. And even then it was, grit your teeth and get through it.
It's a nightmare for DJs because you just get... Even when you've got a captive audience doing a goth night, right? You still get morons coming up and going, "Have you got any Prince?" Fuck off.
Yes, I struggle to see anything goth about Prince. No, well, let's not.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice purple, I think.
Oh yeah,
that's about it. Nice bit of purple.
Did some good tunes. It just not in a bloody goth night,
So that was that. And then, yes, I got some books as well. There was a couple of books I had on my list. There's a chap called John Rogers who has a YouTube channel. He does walks around London mostly.
Oh, I know it. Yeah, you sent me the link a while ago, didn't you?
That's it, yeah. And he really delves into the psychogeography of London and all the strange stories and the little back alleyways.
Yeah, I watched something he did on the Necropolis Railway because I'd just read... I can't remember which one it was, one of Charles Stross's books which includes the Necropolis Railway. And it was really interesting.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of his books. Well, one is him and it's various walks around different places. The other one was recommended by him and it's a list of, well, I wouldn't say all the streets in London, but a lot of all the streets in London with interesting stories. So you'll get, I don't know, St. Chains Walk.
Right, yeah.
Chelsea, right?
Yeah.
And it will go through house by house, what happened and who lived there, from Mick Jagger to Hilaire Belloc and all this kind of stuff.
Does it make it mention Karnacki? That was changed.
It should do, shouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's fascinating stuff. And that's going to be forming the base for some of my Innsmouth excursions coming up.
Lovely.
Oh, speaking of which, I will be putting one of those out in the next couple of weeks. I did some filming down at Plymouth at Francis Drake's old house.
Oh, nice. I've been there. Yeah, when I lived in Devon, yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Really interesting place, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It was a Cistercian abbey until the dissolution. And then it was sold to, it was the Richard Grenville, his family got hold of it, and then Drake got it. And yeah, the legend of Drake's drum, very interesting.
Oh yes, indeed. Yeah, I'd forgotten all about that.
Yeah, that'll be popping up as an Innsmouth excursion soon as well. So that was those books. Then more mythos related. two books, one of which I'd never seen before. So I was very pleased to see this. The Leaves of a Necronomicon, edited by Joe S. Pulver, Sr. This is a Chaosium book. I'll just read you the back to give you an idea. Under the guidance of editor Joseph S. Pulver Sr., The Leaves of a Necronomicon traces the impact of a single copy of the mysterious work on its owners and those around them as it passes from hand to hand across the decades. So it's a collection of stories with that idea, which I thought was a neat idea.
Funnily enough, I've been in an anthology with the exact same premise through Eighth Tower Records called Necronomicon Pages.
Oh, wow.
And again, it was exactly the same thing. I'd like to know which was done first, actually, because, I mean, that must be fairly old, because I'm pretty sure Pulver Sr. died a couple of years ago.
Yeah, well, this is, it says 2022, this edition.
Right.
And it says the estate of Joseph S. Pulver. So maybe it was something he was working on before he passed away.
Right, yeah. Well, I think that one that I was in came out in 2022, so that's really interesting. Yeah.
Well, that's that synchronicity, and you know, sometimes you ride in the same wave, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah. Because I know, C.T. Phipps and David Hambling also did a Necronomicon. Oh no, it was the Al As If, wasn't it, with a similar premise?
Right.
Yeah.
And some of the contributors here, we've got Nate Pedersen, Donald Tyson, Alison Bird, Daniel Mills, S.P. Muskowski, Cody Goodfellow, Robert M. Price, Don Webb, Anna Tambor, Mike Allen. So, yeah, there's a lot of stories in here. There's about 20-odd stories in here, some familiar names, some not familiar names. So I'm looking forward to getting stuck into that. Yeah, very intriguing idea, I think, for a book or for an anthology.
I actually recognise a lot of the names you read out because they're all the sort of people that have been in the Black Wings. They're all of that part of that Lovecraft zine circle.
Yes.
You know, yeah.
And then the other book I got, now this was partly on your recommendation, really, and it's something that's been on the list for years. This is David Conyers' Cthulhu Reloaded, The Collected Harrison Peel Stories, Volume 1.
Nice. I've got volumes 1, 2, and 3. They're really good.
I know you've spoken highly of them, and I'm about halfway through this. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this, I have to say.
Have you read The Spiraling Worm?
I think I've got it. I don't know if I read it.
Yeah, because that's brilliant, that one. Yeah, I love that one. Yeah. There's some cracking stories in that.
Yes. I'm currently about halfway through the weaponized puzzle.
Oh, yes.
So they kind of continue on. You could almost read this as a novel. So
yes, they do.
It's nice because you can take it as short stories, but there's this underlying narrative that joins everything together.
Yeah, it's episodic, isn't it? It's exactly the same thing I've been doing with my Eugene Angove things. They may have been written out of order, but when I put them all together in a book, they will read like a novel. Yeah.
And I have to say, it's getting crazier and crazier.
It gets really bonkers by the end of
it. I don't want to give any sort of spoilers or anything away, but I'm up to this lovely piece where we've got two parties, let's call them, and they're both trapped in this what's called a puzzle that also has a shoggoth rattling around in it in one case. And they're trying to work out mathematically how to get from one to the next. It's very clever.
Yeah, because a lot of it's on higher mathematics, isn't it? It's because it's similar to what Charles Stross does in a way, without the comedic element, but it's based on pure mathematics, and so you've got the bit with the bit where it's basically a part of a shoggoth popping through into our dimension. I thought that was
just left in one bit.
Yeah.
Well, it's something we've spoken about a lot, right? That idea that that place where mathematics and the occult meet.
Yes.
You know, the dreams in a witch house kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's definitely got that aspect, but it's an interesting character as well. It's more like, I suppose, what you call a modern day agency person.
Yes.
You know,
CIA kind of guy.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
But obviously Australia's equivalent.
Yeah.
Because that's something else I really liked about it, because it's obviously Dave Conyers is an Australian author, so it's all based in Australia.
Yeah.
A lot of it, which is really new, because a lot of it, what you read, is set in the States, or there's quite a lot of it over here. So it's quite fresh to me reading something that was set like in the outback and things like that.
Yeah, it gives it a slightly different tone and atmosphere. And I think as much the same way as if he was a British agent, then he'd be struggling to get his paperwork finished and would never have quite the right equipment, you know?
Like Charles Stross's stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a little bit more of that feel rather than being your sort of super slick Mission Impossible kind of guy, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, really enjoying that. And I'll certainly be getting the next couple of volumes in that series. Maybe we can get him on IBC sometime. You know, that would be great if we could get an interview with him or something.
Yeah, it really would. Yeah, I'm a big fan of his work. Like I say, I need to get the last one, which is, I think, which one's that you've got Reloaded?
Yeah, so we've got Reloaded, Resurgent, Remorseless. Then there's Cthulhu Unmasked.
Unmasked. That's the one I need.
Nano Fabrica and The Nightmare Dimension.
Oh, they're the novels. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the Nightmare Dimension's on my list as well. Yeah.
And as well as writing, this and other stories, he's published over 50 science fiction and horror stories, won several awards for his writing, and edited 5 anthologies.
Mm-hmm.
He is also a prolific contributor to the Call of Cthulhu tabletop role-playing game as well. So, Terra Australis. Did you ever play any of those?
No, I didn't. No.
That was an Australian source book back in the day.
That's probably he had something to do with it, probably.
Yeah, and I think it was Mark Morrison, Australian as well, who wrote a lot of the early scenarios.
Yeah, because I know Conyers was involved with Chaosium, because Chaosium first put out the Nightmare Dimension, and one of his first short story collections, called The Spiraling Worm. Because that was how I discovered him.
Right.
Through Chaosium.
No. So, yes, there we go. I was very happy to get those. A nice little haul for Christmas. And, I'll let you know how the rest of the investigations go in that Bureau of Investigation as well. There's one called From the Mountains of Madness, I think, which is got
nice.
a big wodge with it. There's lots of handouts and all that kind of stuff, which I always like. So, yeah, we should be getting stuck into that.
Cool, yeah. So that wraps up the present side of things. Now, we'd be remiss, wouldn't we, if we didn't talk about the big Christmas event for people like you and I.
It'd be rude not to, wouldn't it, really?
It would. Yes, this year's A Ghost Story for Christmas from the BBC, from Mr. Mark Gatiss. And I was both excited and scared about what would happen, because this is, as we've covered the original story on the show in the past, and as I mentioned then, this is one of my favourite ghost stories of all time. I love the original story, Man Size in Marble by E. Nesbitt. And yes, Mark Gatiss did Woman of Stone.
Yes, we covered it in episode 61. Well, I'll put the link up to that below. And funnily enough, as someone else noted, we were saying at the time, wouldn't this be perfect for a TV adaptation for Christmas Ghost Story?
Yeah.
I like to think Mr. Gatiss was listening. you never know.
Yeah, I like to think that, but he obviously didn't listen to the bit where one of us said, but it doesn't need any messing about with.
He actually said this was the very first ghost story he ever read as well, apparently. So.
Yeah, it's one of the first ones I ever read. Yeah, I think he must have had the same Reader's Digest book of ghost stories that I had kicking around the house as a kid.
So, as you may remember, this is a story about a couple who have moved out of London. They move into, it's the remains of a derelict house in the story.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of tension in the marriage. There's a local church with the stone effigies of 2 knights in there who, of course, spoiler alert, at one point get up, walk about, strangle the wife, and there we go. And she's left gripping the stone finger of one in her cold, dead hand. That's roughly the plot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he does kind of stick to that plot.
Yeah.
But the first big change is the title. But why do you think he changed the title?
I think the title is a reference to The Maid.
Yeah.
I think that's a reference to The Maid because, in the original story, The Maid is just there to provide yokel knowledge.
Yokel knowledge.
Yeah. Just there to provide yokel knowledge. It's just like acts squirrely when asked about the stone effigies, and then tells them the story that, because it's Halloween in the story. But obviously they changed it to Christmas in the adaptation, which didn't bother me. There was only two changes that really did bother me. One was the change of location, because it's set in Bresnet on the Romney Marshes where E. Nesbit stayed.
Yeah.
So it's a place I fully intend to visit this year. I was supposed to be going last year, but it flooded. We had to go somewhere else.
The marsh flooded. Wow.
Yeah, I know. There you go. Well, that's the one peril of it. But I think, but it was moved up north to a coastal area, and I think by moving it, it lost a lot of its atmosphere because you didn't get that desolate, windswept expanse of just grimness that is a marsh.
Totally, and that is a feature in the original story as well. You do get that sense of atmosphere and then the mist and the fog and everything else, don't you?
Absolutely. And the other big change we'll get to in a little bit, because I'm sure, I know it upset you as well. But back to the title. But in this version, the wife and the maid have a conversation, and they're talking about basically what a bastard the husband is.
Yeah.
Because it's more hinted at in the story. It was made kind of explicit in the adaptation, which I don't have a problem with because it is a factor of the story. I mean, that's there. It's just subtext, and it's hard to do subtext in a half an hour story on BBC for Christmas.
Yeah.
So I kind of get the fact that they had to be more sort of in your face with it.
They show the bruises, right, which wasn't really... Yeah. I don't know that was particularly there in the story, that level of domestic abuse.
No, it was more mental cruelty.
Yeah, I mean, the guy was certainly an arse because we said that in the episode, didn't we?
Yes. It's more mental cruelty because, again, like a lot of E. Nesbit's ghost stories and things, they are partly autobiographical, which is obviously why they included her.
Well, I thought that was quite nice. It was Celia Imrie as Edith Nesbit, pretty much on her deathbed or approaching it.
Yes.
And the doctor comes to visit, and that was our framing device for the story. So I didn't have a problem with that.
I quite liked that. I thought that was actually quite well done.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was a nice portrayal.
Yes, it was. Yeah. And, as you say, it points to this very strange, in some ways, married life that she had.
Yeah. Which I think we discussed it when we covered the episode, didn't we? There was
yeah. Although she did later find happiness with the captain of the Woolwich ferry, which always brings a smile to my face.
Yes, I like that. It's a happy ending in a way, isn't it?
Yeah.
But like a lot of writers, I guess she wrote as catharsis, so there was that element in the story to begin with. So, like I say, that I was happy with that.
And I like that they mentioned the railway children as well. And she was a bit like, oh, that's the only bloody thing we're going to remember for us.
I know.
It's this sort of twee child's book, That was quite good.
Well, what about one of my Grimm tales, which I thought was nice because her collection was called Grimm Tales. So that was obviously a nice nod. There was a lot of nice little Easter eggs and things like that in it, which I appreciated. Because I've got the In the Dark collection of Nesbit's work, which is all of her ghost stories and supernatural stories, and there were several little nods and winks, so you can tell that Gatiss is a fan.
And I mean, I thought that for me the main issue was, well, the first thing is 30 minutes is too short a time, to do a story like this. But he has to work with what he's got, I guess. I thought the scariest bit was the opening scene with the two knights in the mist and the murder, the strangle. That was quite ominous. It never really got creepier than that, except for maybe one scene, I thought.
Now, you see, I thought he completely blew the atmosphere and the scene because I wrote in my head how it should have been done afterwards. I was like, no, he should have done it like this. That would have been way creepier. It would have been almost like a kind of jump scare, but not, and it would have been great. Was when the husband leaves and he's going through the woods and you got this lovely droning music and it's the atmosphere's building. But then it cuts to the church and you see the damn statues move.
Yeah, that again for me, because at the first, when I watched it again, I thought, were the two knights at the very beginning, were they the statues or the actual knights? They were the actual knights, right? Yeah. They were human. And they were scarier to me than seeing those two statues sit up. The sound effects were good.
They were.
The sound was good. But they sat up, and then when they walked off, they walked like people. They were obviously people in suits.
Yeah, I don't think you needed to see them. I really don't. I think in my head, how it would have been better was him pootling on. He's gone to the church. He's having a ciggy. He's waiting for the doctor so he can have a fight with him or whatever he was planning doing. He goes inside and you get that lovely long high angle shot and there's no things there. If they were cut out the scene of them moving, that would have been way more effective and that would have been a proper, ooh, what the fuck sort of moment.
Yeah. Well, we're back to mezzo tint, right?
Yeah.
The same thing again. I wonder if there's almost like a contractual obligation in some way that he has to show the creature or something.
I think that's just modern TV and modern filming in general. Look at the remake of The Woman in Black, the Harry Potter version, the Daniel Radcliffe version.
Jump scare, jump scare, jump scare.
Jump scare, jump scare, jump scare, jump scare. Modern horror films don't know how to build an atmosphere without sticking a load of jump scares in it. There are exceptions, but on the whole...
We're going to be talking about an exception in a little moment,
yes.
actually.
Right. I've still not seen it yet. But
yeah, I agree. But it's not a jump scare, is it? When the things sit up like that, it's like I say, they were more scary at the start.
Yeah.
Maybe if you'd have put that scene in back then and not had that at the beginning, because I felt there was sort of no tension in it, really.
No, because I think he blew the tension by cutting, because that scene where he was going and it was dark, and because the story, the maids told them what's coming.
Yeah.
You know that, and your brain can put the pieces together. So, and it was lovely, well lit, like that blue light and the low mist as he's going through the woods and getting to the church, and it was some great atmospheric shots of the church. And I thought, yeah, this is great. This is getting good. But then it cut away from him and went to this of them rising. And I was like, well, you've just blown your wad. You've shot your bolt already.
Yeah. But the big reveal later on of the finger gripped in the hand is not really, because that's even lined up, isn't it? Because we see when we cut back to the statues are there, the finger on one is missing.
Yeah.
So, well, where else can it be?
Yeah, I think it would have been more. I understand why they did it, because that gets back to the naming of it. Was the maid finds the finger and hides it, so the husband can then be blamed, taken away, and executed. So she's the woman of stone, because she's damned this guy to be hanged.
And she shows no emotion.
And shows no emotion.
In effect. Yeah. Although, again, watching it the second time, it was very well acted.
Yes.
It was Monica Dolan played Mrs. Dorman. It was Jana Hardwick as Jack Lorimer, Phoebe Horn as Laura Lorimer, Celia Imrie we mentioned, and Marwan Rizwan as the doctor. I mean, it was all very nicely acted and all very well done.
It was all very well done.
But I think in particular, if you go back and watch Mrs. Dorman, she has these little micro expressions at times that give a lot more information.
Almost like a tick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought there was that, but that was something we noticed more on the second viewing, because we were a little bit like after the first viewing, why did Mrs. Dorman disappear and why did she then come back? But then Lara actually worked out, because the timing changes, doesn't it? We go from finding the body of the wife to pretty much the bloke being hanged.
Yeah.
And then it cuts back again.
Yeah, I think that really took me out of it, because I think it would have been far more effective if they'd have done that, shown the finger, then shown the doctor in the church finding the finger that are missing on the statue. But obviously he doesn't know about the finger that was in the hand of the maid, and then show the execution. I would love to actually get a copy of it, right, and do a re-edit, because I think taking it, disjointing it like they did, it blew the tension again.
Well, there was like kind of 2 or 3 time cuts there, because you go from the event pretty much to the execution.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go back to post-event where the house is being emptied out. But then you go back again to where she finds the
finger.
Lara was saying she thinks that was before the husband had come home. So she was saying that Mrs. Dorman comes in, sees that she's dead, finds the finger, hides it, then leaves the house again, waits for the husband to come back, and then says, oh, right, well, you did that.
Oh, well, that could work. Yeah. I mean, I thought it was when they found her And then they were
getting the police in and all that sort of stuff.
Getting the police doing that, and she took the finger. I thought that happened then. But that works really well, doesn't it?
Yeah, that makes Mrs. Dorman much more of the woman in stone, because now she's kind of set this whole thing up.
Yeah.
And she's hidden the evidence before. So it still doesn't quite pan out on a couple of things to me, even with that. Did she know for sure that was going to happen? She punishes the husband, but by killing the wife, it's a little bit murky still.
Yeah, but I mean the original story, because it plays with the unreliable narrator trope, doesn't it? Because there is the implication that it was actually him that killed his wife.
Yeah,
it's left kind of ambiguous, even though it's not. It was the statues, but that's the sort of how it was set up.
Yeah.
So I can see what he was going for, but I think a different cut of that would make it 10 times better. I would take the moving statues and throw it on the cutting room floor and just jiggle the ending bits around. And I think that would be a far more effective piece.
Because you could still have the husband coming in and seeing the bare slabs. You could even have him hearing something or sensing a presence, something's moving, but then it's still like, yeah, but is he really seeing that, or is that what he's...
But I think that bit, when he goes in and sees the bare slabs, would have been such a great what the fuck moment, because the shot they used, it was like a high angle coming down on the slabs with him sort of standing between them. If they'd have just gone from him going in, because that bit where he walks in and he's sort of oblivious for a moment, then he turns and does the whole thing, and then cut to that would have been a far better reveal than having them sit up.
Yeah, I agree. One other minor gripe as well was December, and there's this lovely picnic scene by the river where she's got a little blanket laid out and all that. Verdant trees, sunshine, birds singing, Again, that just takes you out of the atmosphere a little bit, which if it had been set by the marshes, fog, mist, everything else, would have been a bit more foreboding, I think.
It was all a bit bright, wasn't it? There was like golden sunshine and things in the scene where they visit the church when they've just moved in and all that.
Yeah.
Whereas the sky should have been grey from the get-go, in my opinion.
Yeah. So what would you call that? A near miss, I think? I mean, I enjoyed watching it.
A near miss, yeah. I mean, on the whole, I enjoyed it. Yeah. It could have been a hell of a lot worse. But no, yeah, I just think I think it's frustrating because it was so close to being a hit for me. Like I say, I thoroughly enjoyed it, but there was the certain bits that,
it didn't have that bite, did it?
No,
for me. I mean, the framing device worked fine. I thought the domestic abuse issue.
Oh yeah, fine.
Yeah. It's good to bring those things out, But
because like I say, they're there in the subtext, so you may as well use them.
Absolutely, yeah. But it just lacked that ooh moment,
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is down to the time constraints.
Sure,
because I felt it didn't have quite enough time to breathe. Like, there should have been a lot more moody, long... I mean, that scene where he's walking to the church, you're right. He should have been going down there in the dark. That should have been a good couple of minutes shot of him just walking, and then some furtive rustles, some heavy boots.
Not furtive rustle again. He gets around.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he?
Him and dusty tones.
And then some heavy boots or something. And hello, who was there? Kind of, that's that good old stuff, Hammer horror stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, you did get the little bit of a cliche thing, that the scream of the fox, right? As someone who lives in the country, you do that kind of thing.
Bugger the country, I get it every night. The damn things like to come in the courtyard of the building here and basically have a bit of fox rumpy, which that's not what you need at 3 a.m.
Is it as bad as hedgehog rumpy? That's quite a noise.
It is.
That's quite spectacular. To be fair, I suppose they're probably going, let me just get
down a bit, up a bit.
Oh, you'll only feel a little prick. All right. So that's our thoughts on Woman of Stone. Let us know what you think. Um, again, 30 minutes. What would you do for a 30-minute adaptation? I think that's been the issue with most of them is having to cram everything into that short time frame. The one last year, I quite enjoyed the Mummy.
I really enjoyed that. That's one of my favourites of the modern ones. I thought that was really well done.
Yeah.
And that thing is that fits his style more. Because if you've watched his Doctor Who episodes, that's more of his style, that kind of, academic chaps unraveling a mummy and blah, 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 blah. That's more what he's good at doing. Whereas I think, the more Hammer end of things, whereas these are more cerebral, I guess you'd call them.
Mood pieces, almost.
Mood pieces, chamber pieces. Yeah.
And it's interesting to see the move away from M.R. James as well. I mean, obviously, there's a limited amount of stories in that respect, but there's also a limited amount of stories you can do in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I thought Count Magnus was really pushing it for 30 minutes. There was so much missed out and implied that spoiled that a bit.
I'm surprised they haven't done Canon Albrecht's scrapbook. I mean, that to me would work.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, do you remember the old ones, The Treasure of Abbot Thomas and The Ashtray, and that were they sort of 45 minutes?
They were 45 minutes, yeah, because I've got the DVD box set. They're 45 minutes, yeah.
Stalls of Barchester, I think they did.
Tractate Mid-Off. They did a load of them. Yeah. It was only really recently that they've gone to the 30-minute format because the early ones, the reboot, were longer.
That's right, yeah.
But I think in Mesotint was the first one that went to half an hour.
Right.
I could be wrong on that, but I think that's in the back of my mind.
Yeah. So that's been, I guess we could call that the traditional Christmas treat.
Indeed.
But for fans of classic horror, there's been another major treat that just came out, New Year's Day, actually. We went to see it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Nosferatu, the 2025 edition, directed by Robert Eggers, starring Bill Skarsgård as Count Orlok, Nicholas Hoult and Lily Rose Depp as Thomas and Ellen Hutter, with Aaron Taylor-Johnson as Friedrich, Emma Corrin as Anna, Ralph Ineson as Dr. Sievers, Simon McBurney as Herr Knock, and Willem Dafoe as Professor von Franz. And, of course, Dafoe played Max Schreck, right, in Shadow of the Vampire. That's a nice squaring of the circle, or circling of the square.
Indeed. I liked that. Yeah. Yeah. Which actually brings me to my first question about it, because I've not seen it yet. The circling of the square and the squaring of the circle. Does it keep those occult references that we discussed when we were talking about the original?
I was very pleased to see that it does. In fact, it emphasizes them.
Oh, good.
Because in the original, we get a glimpse of the Enochian language, right, and some scripts. Well, you get that, but you also get a sort of full-blown ritual as well.
Oh, nice. Okie dokie.
And Herr Knock, I love the way they pronounce it, is Knock.
Oh, I can't, because that just reminds me of Hello, Hello.
Knock on the door?
No. It's the Knock verse. The picture of the fallen Madonna and the big boobies is hidden inside the Knock verse. And Herr Gruber is in charge of it.
Oh, nice. Well, it is made very implicit and clear in this that Herr Knock is an occultist, and he has established this connection with Count Orlok. In effect, he sold his soul to him to become his servitor. So we do get that in a full-blown, full frontal ritual of Herr Knock.
Nice.
Garishly lit in red torch glow in the centre of a ritual circle, the occult circle, performing this rite. So, yeah, that is very strongly established. It looks fantastic. The cinematography, the colours, everything absolutely looks fantastic. The Nosferatu, it's interesting. Count Orlok himself, he's gone back to the original Dracula look. I mean, the real original Dracula look of the guy with the moustache, the Carpathian warlord.
I know, because I've seen all the memes.
Yeah,
Bruce Forsyth, and my favourite was the legendary hardcore wrestler Terry Funk. I'm a vampire now.
So yeah, there's been quite a lot on social media about that, and I was looking on the Dracula appreciation page, and it was something like why have they given Dracula a moustache? And someone's put up a portrait of Vlad Tepes.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
if you read the original description, even Christopher Lee played him with a moustache once, right? There's that.
Yes. Yeah.
So what I liked was, now it's not Max Schreck. It's a very different look from that. I did see a quick glance of something the other day that said the look for Shrek may have been taken from a picture of a golem or something.
Yeah.
Who was this sort of bald, hairless creature, almost Gollum-like, Golem. So I don't know if that was where the Max Schreck look come from.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a Transylvanian warlord, but he is very obviously dead.
Right.
So he's not at all your Gary Oldman, nice hairdo, cloak.
Is he more like the early stages of the Bram Stoker's Dracula, Gary Oldman? Because that to me is one of the best portrayals.
Yeah.
And it kind of went wonky when he suddenly became a goth.
The man about town, right? Yeah. The lovely purple tinted sunglasses and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, he suddenly became about 25 people at Whitby Goth Weekend.
Oh, yeah. It's much more like the early one, but even more so in that you barely really see him and make really good use of shadow. So he's just a shape and a presence. The hands come in a lot. There's a lot of hands.
Yeah. That was going to be my next question, was the hands. Do you get that? Yeah.
So the hands are quite the same, those long, gnarly fingers with the talons.
Lovely.
But then you get that bit where Hutter goes down into the crypt and sees him in the coffin,
Oh, yes. Does he do the stand-up thing?
No, that was one regret. I was waiting for the stand-up, but they didn't do that.
That's a shame.
I don't know. Did they think maybe that's a bit of a cliche to put it in there? I don't know. But to me, that's a pivotal part of Nosferatu.
Yeah. I mean, that's the bit that everybody remembers,
But when he finds him in the coffin, I think in the original, he just sort of sees his face, doesn't he? I think through the broken wood. Well, in this one, he slides the top off and you get this full frontal, and I mean full frontal view of Count Orlok. And he stands up and he's got maggots crawling on him, puffy grave worms. He's got bits hanging off. It is gross.
Yeah.
So in that sense, yeah, it's not your suave, sophisticated, welcome to my home kind of thing.
Yeah, not your Bela Lugosi.
No, it's a walking corpse,
Awesome.
So that aspect was really good. Lydia Rose Depp, she gave a really great performance, I thought, as Ellen, like the sort of Mina Harker character.
Yeah, I've seen mixed reviews on her. Some people saying that it was really well done, and other people saying that the performance was just off somehow. And they can't really put a finger on why it was off. It just felt off.
I think they did a bit too much of it. So you get these almost like exorcist type possession scenes where her eyes roll back and she's distorting. I mean, an incredible physical performance.
Yeah, that's some bits I've seen criticism for, was the horror tropes, basically, The Exorcist.
You're almost waiting for the head to spin round, your mother knits socks in hell kind of thing.
In fact, that's pretty much exactly what Joel from Byronic Sex and Exile said when he posted about it online.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I think they did too much of that because there's about 4 scenes, I think, where she's undergoing that, and it's very disturbing to watch. But it's like, yeah, we get the message, we know what's happening, and I suppose it's a difficult thing in a way. We were saying, like, because the plot is paper thin.
No, of course it is. Yeah.
He goes there, Count comes back, rats, plague. She has to. I'm not giving away any spoilers because everyone knows the story. She sacrifices herself to save everyone. So in that sense, it's a paper thin plot, and that has attracted some criticism. But then we were talking about jump scares earlier. To his credit, I can't think there's not really a jump scare in it.
Oh, good.
There might be some little jumpy bits, but not that.
I mean, 1 or 2 here and there, but not Daniel Radcliffe Woman in Black levels of like 50 jump scares per second. It's just, exactly. Because it's the law of diminishing returns, right? One well done jump scare, like the original ITV Woman in Black. There's one jump scare, and everybody knows which jump scare I'm talking about. right? Everybody knows it because it's one of the best, well done jump scares in the history of cinema.
Absolutely.
It's way more effective than the 102 jump scares or how many hell it was in the other one.
Yeah. And the genius bit about that jump scare moment in the TV Woman in Black was the foreshadowing.
Yes.
The picture above the bed, you see the figure crossing the causeway.
Indeed. I love, because that just gets the skin crawling, doesn't it? Yeah. It's like, oh, yeah.
So, yeah, and I thought in that sense, as a piece of weird fiction or weird cinema, it worked very, very well because it was all about establishing the atmosphere, the feeling, a sense of increasing dread that you can't really do anything about, that creeping fear, the lurking fear that grows and grows and grows. I thought on that level, yeah, that's what weird fiction is.
Yeah.
As a piece of cinema entertainment, I can see why, well, it's not a date movie, right? There was someone put up, you get these reviews of like, Joel's review, very thoughtful, and then you get someone else say, well, that was boring.
There's always one, isn't there?
And someone put, perhaps you better wait till Fast and Furious 8 comes out then. So, yeah, it did feel a little bit draggy in the middle, perhaps. There was a little bit in the middle where we both, it seems a little bit slow now. But this is part of building that atmosphere. It works really well as that. And I think one thing you got with the look of it, so the original is obviously all-out German expressionism squared. Right?
Yes, yeah.
And then you have Werner Herzog in 79 with, we mentioned when we spoke about this a few episodes back, the Romantics, the German Romantics, and some of the shots were actual recreations of romantic paintings.
Yeah.
So you get that in there as well because you get these occasional landscapes that look fantastic. So you've got the expressionism, you've got the romanticism. Then I think you get the Gothic as well with some of the settings and the fact that Ellen is a Gothic heroine. She looks like a goth. she's all alone. She's doomed. She's got all those tropes of the Gothic heroine.
You may as well rename her Lenore.
Exactly.
And have a raven pecking on the window.
Yeah. So I thought he does achieve a good blend of those three things. There was one shot in particular of the town. There's all these stairways going up and the houses that lean a bit. I mean, it's Caligari, it's straight out of Caligari.
Yeah. Where is it shot? Do you know?
I don't know, actually. I don't know. The setting is Germany, a town in Germany.
Right.
Similar to, again, the originals and Herzog's remake, because you get that scene with the Demeter coming in and the rats pouring off it,
Oh, nice, yeah.
The plague's arrived.
The plague, yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of good use of shadows as well. There's one scene, I think it's probably in the preview, where she's standing in front of the net curtains, are all billowy, and you see a silhouette behind the net curtains. But when the curtain goes back, there's no one there.
Nice.
That was very well done.
Yeah, I intend to go and see it at some point, probably over this week, because I'm it's my birthday week, so I'm all over everywhere. But I'm looking forward to it. Yeah,
well worth seeing. Oh, you'll enjoy it, and I'll be interested to see your thoughts on it after. Yeah. I want to see it again, actually. Because I think there's a lot in there that you'll miss first time.
Right.
There's a lot of little details in there, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's probably a bunch of Easter eggs as well, like to things like Shadow of the Vampire and the original and the Herzog and all that.
Defoe does a really good job as the professor as well.
I can, I know that without even seeing it. I can just, he's going to do a good job of that character.
It is that kind of cool of the Cthulhu investigator type where he comes in and he's quite rational at the start, even though he's talking about possession and demons. And by the end of it, he's totally, let's burn the house down.
like Hopkins in the Coppola one, eating his steak. Aha, she is Nosferatu, a vampire.
Let's go around there, cut her head off.
Yeah, exactly.
Then back to Mrs. Miggins' pie shop.
Huzzah!
I have seen rumours about a director's cut as well.
Really?
So
already?
Yeah. Well, that was one other thing. The very start, we see Ellen when she's younger. she's got this sort of connection with something. This is where the possession side of it comes in. But we assume that's Count Orlok, but it's not very clear. And I don't know how true this is, the director's cut, one of the things that was cut was more of that prologue, setting the whole thing up. Because what it does seem in this is she brings Orlok across. She contacts him and somehow summons him. But to me, that was a little bit unclear how that was happening, because you're not sure why he's coming over, you know. And in this, it seems it's because of her.
Right.
So then there's sort of stories about, is she the architect of her own demise, or, you know, and obviously there's all that subtext going on of a woman in that time and place being told to tighten your corset up. This is because you haven't got your corset on tight enough and all that nonsense, you know.
Well, it's like the whole premise of the yellow wallpaper, right? It's that kind of thing.
Exactly. So there's that aspect to it as well. But it'll be interesting to see if there is a director's cut, if that beginning is explained a little more clearly.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll definitely be giving that a watch in the next week or two.
And I'm not the only person to have seen this, am I?
No, pretty much everybody except me has seen this, from what I would have gathered. Just before we move on to that, just something I want to quickly mention, because Joel came up in conversation there. He recently did an article for Metal Hammer, the music magazine, which I haven't actually bought since the 90s. So I'm actually going to have to buy a copy.
Nice.
He was paid to do an article on the enduring attraction of Dracula in music.
Ah, excellent.
Because he's a member of the Dracula Society, and his partner, Dr. Penny Goodman, does lectures on Dracula, on Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Right.
So, yeah. so he's done an article in a Metal Hammer magazine about Dracula in music. So
cool.
I need to pick up a copy.
Yes, check that out. So, yeah, we've had some correspondence in from our patrons and listeners, including, of course, our Auburn correspondent, Niels Hedgelin, who has also seen Nosferatu. Niels writes, "Hi, for my holiday loot, I received the second volume of the Smith Nightshade set to complete the collection, and the Dawnwood Spire Lonely Hill collection of Smith Lovecraft letters. Prompted by your recent episode, I finally watched the original Nosferatu for the first time, the one with female vocalizations as part of the score, and then saw the remake, which I really liked. They stayed pretty close to the original movie, but added more to flesh out the story. I really liked the look of Orlok, similar but not the same, and with very historical clothing. The one thing I had a problem with was Orlok's speaking. His accent and roughness of voice were so strong, I had trouble understanding him sometimes. Hope your sacks were bulging."
Oh, mine was.
Actually, yeah, that's one thing I didn't mention was Orlok's voice. It's a very strong accent with lots of rolled R's.
Right.
But effective, yeah, but it could be a little bit difficult to pick out what he was actually saying at times.
Yeah. Now, I just want to jump in here very, very quickly before you get on to the next missive, because Niels replied to the email that you sent out about Patreons, about what we're covering on this episode, and if you want to send us in your thing. Now, I have a question for you, Mr. Poyton.
Oh, blimey. Right, go on. That wasn't me.
What is a fungu?
A fungu.
A fungu.
It's when you have a fondue, but with mushrooms.
Oh, well, I thought it was a me-go fondue pie. Or a very strange type of Japanese dumpling containing,
a squid, a little
baby squid or something. Yeah, yeah. It really made me giggle yesterday. It was one of those things. I don't know why it made me giggle quite so much, but it really tickled me when I saw that.
Is that me and my poor spelling?
Yeah. We'll be covering fungu from your goth.
Yeah, it's like it's the menu version of fungi from your goth.
Gotcha.
The necronomy nom nom nom.
It's not a bad idea, is it? No. Anyway, my silliness over now. We'll move on.
Uric wrote in as well. Uric Deveta. Nosferatu, excellent. Doubly so the ensuing 1 a.m. bike ride home in the wet, cold and dark through empty streets lit by traffic lights and Christmas decorations. petrichor heavy in the air.
Ooh,
That's nice, isn't it?
nice.
Nice little atmospheric slice of Urich's Christmas.
I like it. See, that's something that I like. I do actually like about the festive period, because I'm not a big fan. I think everybody knows that. But I am Ebenezer Scrooge incarnate. Something I like to do is go out for a walk on Christmas Day when it's dark and there's no bugger around. There's no cars, and you just walk around. And there was a fog this year, like a proper Silent Hiller. A proper Silent Hill fog. Yeah. I'm walking around, getting a bit jumpy. It was great. That was really nice.
Nice.
Yes, and we also had some correspondence about the Ghost Story for Christmas, Woman in Stone. This in from Dominic J. Allen. I hadn't read the story, so I read that yesterday and re-listened to the podcast covering it. Thank you very much. Quite funny how many times it was mentioned that it would make a good ghost story for Christmas. I enjoyed it. It kept the core story pretty true while expanding it a little bit here and there, which I thought fit. Missed opportunity of the jump scare while he is running through the forest and he crashes into something, which you think is one of the Marble Men. Here it was clear it was the Doctor. Okay, a slight correction on the list of lost F.W. Marno films. The Haunted Castle isn't lost. You can get it on Eureka's early Marnu set. I didn't know that. That must have been fairly recently rediscovered.
Yeah, I'll see if I'll dig that out and put a link in it. Yeah, Dominic did send us a picture of that as well, so I shall investigate further on that. And yeah, I see that Dominic agrees with us there on that. Again, missed opportunity in certain parts, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We had another email from Niels Hedgelin, this time about the little Christmas special that I cobbled together, where I was looking at various aspects of the festive season involving the Lovecraft Circle. So there was a few poems and letters and things like that. I had great fun doing that, actually, so I will be revisiting that next year. I'm going to do a part 2.
Excellent.
Yeah. So Niels writes, "Hi, Tim. Thanks for the name check in your Christmas special. Don't know exactly when the forest fires were that you mentioned, but I thought you might like to know that from my research, the December poem you read of Smith's was his most syndicated poem. It was originally published in the Auburn Journal in December of 1923, but for some reason it was picked up again in 1928 and printed in at least 8 different newspapers across the US between October of 28 and January of 29. And at least one instance, it was accompanied by some nice wintry illustrations." Yeah, he's very kindly attached a screenshot of that, or a picture of that. And yeah, very, very cool indeed. Stay cool and Merry Yule. So thank you for that. I'm glad you enjoyed that, because I had immense fun doing it.
Yeah, I look forward to more of those. That was a very interesting thing. I never realised that HPL was sent out all those little Christmas rhymes to people.
Yeah, I love the ones he sent to Frank Belknap Long's cat. I mean, that's just brilliant, isn't it? It completely debunks this myth that he was this dour figure.
The old curmudgeon.
Yeah. I mean, he's sending Christmas rhymes to a cat.
As every cat should receive at least one Christmas card.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
This befits their station.
Indeed.
As our overlords.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's very true, isn't it?
Well, I can hear Mr. Sergeant pulling up in the bus outside, so it's time for us to leave Innsmouth. We hope you've enjoyed today's visit and a little look at the contents of our festive stockings and sacks. That's a grim thought, isn't it?
Isn't it just?
Yeah, we'd love to hear what you think about anything we've discussed today, particularly the Ghost Story for Christmas and Nosferatu. And we'd also like to welcome a new patron, Steve Grant. Thanks very much for signing up, Steve. Of course, if you want to support the show, you can check out our Patreon site, where you can sign up at 3 levels of membership, and you'll get a regular copy of Innsmouth News. You'll get free entry to all of our events. Well, I say all of them. It's just one at the moment, the Innsmouth Literary Festival, but it is a very good one.
Indeed.
We may be planning more things in the future. Who knows? As we say, who knows what 2025 may bring.
Absolutely.
So thanks again for listening, folks. We'll see you next time. Well, I believe we're going to be doing we're doing the Fungu from Yorgoth.
We are. Yes, our next one is going to be another bonus episode for our patrons, where we're going to be going. Which number is it now?
Is it part
four
four?
or
I think?
five?
4 or 5,
Yeah.
I think.
Our ongoing trawl through the sonnet cycle of Fungu from Yorgoth.
And on that dyslexic note, it's goodbye from me, Rab Pinton.
And it's goodbye from me, Mitt Tendies.